Thank you. It's not compatible with EU law, but also it's not compatible with the achievement or the maintenance of 1.5 degrees of global warming. So just to pull back again and look at peatlands, they are the largest natural terrestrial carbon store. Emissions, they store more carbon than than all other vegetation types in the world combined. However, damaged peatlands and drained peatlands are no longer a benefit, and they are no longer a carbon store. In fact, they become major emitters, and it's estimated that between 5 and 6% of all global anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions each year come from damaged peatlands. So to be clear, when we allow damaged peatlands to continue, we lose twice. We lose on the carbon we're not sequestering, and we lose on the emissions that are going out. So there's a double cost to the environment from this measure. Worldwide, we know that this is a disaster waiting to happen. And I agree that we should be looking to the global implications, and we shouldn't be importing from Sri Lanka, and we certainly should be supporting, for example, the Congo Basin to keep their peat in the ground rather than be pressed to export it. The restoration of peatlands has been stated as a priority. We've heard it a lot. It's one of the few cards Ireland has to play in our climate things. It's the one thing we say we're going to do. But to be clear, it's been calculated, the top peatland experts, we could reduce our GHG emissions by 15% if we restored peatlands. And that's important because the European Commission has set a target of 2035 for net zero carbon on land use. Again, this is one of the most efficient, achievable emission reduction instruments we have at a time when, let it be clear, not just every sector is going to have to change. We are in a climate crisis, and every sector will be making changes, and just transition is about addressing every sector. And I would say I do support just transition, but just transition is around supporting those in the industry, not about delaying the transition. So the environmental information is clear. The legal aspects are also extremely clear because the bill would give, and let's talk about what the bill does. The bill gives a derogation which could extend to 2030 into the next two carbon budgets. 2022, 2026, potentially expanding to 2030. And really crucially, if we say this is about the small horticulture and not the big peat extractors who, as we've heard, have exported 500,000 tonnes last year, 900,000 tonnes the year previously. And again, 2019 was the alarm bell. We've already had our temporary period, our emergency period for transition. It was 2019, and that's a charitable interpretation because, in fact, the need to exit from horticultural peat has been clear since the 90s, and even in 2014, Ireland, and Minister, I hope you will address this in your answer, Ireland was being penalised, being criticised by the European Court of Justice over its failure to designate special areas of conservation or natural heritage areas. And I was in the Oireachtas after that 2019 ruling, and instead of looking to address the crisis, perhaps using Bord na Móna, putting, for example, say on Bord na Móna as the one extractive body that we do control in terms of their actions, we were looking to de-designate new bogs. That's what was being used, political capital. And when we talk about the last government, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, who put these motions, were the last government. And I know I spoke about these issues. It is not a sudden alarm that has arisen. And I would just say, in relation to the 4,000 tonnes being imported, that was one of the most shameful pieces of political theatre and has deeply discredited the IFA and others who supported that language, because it means, how can we engage with them credibly in relation to the climate debate as we want to, if they are putting out 4,000 figures in terms of imports while not discussing 500,000 tonnes in exports? So let's be clear, the bill allows for still the continuation of exports with horticulture. It does not limit it to domestic horticulture. The bill also rewards those who have been extracting over the last, recklessly, in knowledge of the 2019 ruling over the last year and a half, because it says, specifically in part 1331B, that nothing should be affected by any previous unauthorised peat extraction or associated unauthorised development. Again, we'll reward those. And this is the chance. It's the last chance saloon. You extract what you can quietly. You have that non-action from the previous government. And then they're asking we apply blinkers again. This is effectively a nod and wink bill that we should again turn our back and turn a blind eye to what has been happening in terms of extraction. The bill is also very clearly it's not compatible with the 2019 ruling, the landmark High Court ruling. It is not compatible with the EIA directive or the Habitats directive, and crucially I don't believe also that it is procedurally or legally compatible with Article 9.2 or 3 of the Aarhus Convention, because the public have a right to a say in relation to environmental decision making that affects their futures. Minister, the bill is not legally sound and it won't stand. But I'm speaking to you. I urge that you do not make unnecessary concessions, inappropriate concessions that tie our hands for 5 years or 10 years into 2030. Because if we do so, we send a signal to every sector that political theatre will be rewarded. And let's be clear, if export miles were the issue, then let's have scope 3 accounting on everything. So we measure the miles attached to the supply chain in both directions for all our agricultural produce. That's something that I will support.
Thank you, Senator.